Nancy. I just sent you an email telling you it's not tomorrow night, it's Wednesday night.
Great, and I just responded to you. Thank you.
Okay. I'm like, oh my gosh. I kept thinking today was Tuesday. Good thing I remembered it was Monday for now.
So remember, we're being recorded.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, that I don't know what day it is? Is that what you're telling me? I shouldn't be admitting that on film? Oh, well.
Did you go on Saturday to the library?
I did. It was very nice.
Oh, I'm so
Christine-
sorry.
Christine
I couldn't make it.
recorded
What?
Christine recorded it.
Oh, hooray.
Yeah, because I told her that Calantha would very much like to see it. So,
Great.
yeah. There was
Oh,
no-
I'm so happy. So we have to tell her when
how it's going to be on. Obviously, it'd be through the
Yeah.
live, but I'm sure we'll
Oh,
find it.
excellent.
Yeah.
I will be there the next 2 weeks.
Oh, good. I'm planning on it. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. My plan.
Oh,
I spent some time playing a new game this weekend. It's
what was
called
it called?
GeoGuessr. It's GeoGuessr.
Oh,
GeoGuessr or SSR. And you sign on with your computer, and everybody's on their own laptop or tablet or whatever. And the computer drops you in a location, someplace in the world. And by reading street signs and buildings and locating hotels and things, you have to try to figure out where you are.
that sounds like fun.
It was a lot of fun. We went to Czechia. We were in, we actually,
Hi, this is Tony. I'm on by phone. I don't have my laptop with me, so I'll just put myself on mute, and if you guys need me, I'm here to answer any questions.
Hello, everybody.
hi,
Hi,
Lynn.
Lynn.
So who was that just speaking?
That was Tony Barletta.
Oh, okay.
He's on phone.
Okay, great.
Sounds like he has little people with him.
Sounds like it. All right, very good. Well, let's have our group join together. I guess Tony's probably under the 781-299 number. Is that Tony?
Yeah.
Yes, that's me. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Tony.
And like I said, I'll just put myself on mute, and if you guys need me, I'll jump off mute.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we'll let our happy crew join together, shall we? I guess we're the happy.
Well, Dave Wilson is here, but he's disguised.
I know. I see him though. That's what I mean. We three. Julie's ex officio. There he
There he
goes.
is.
Did you get your computer fixed? No?
He's muted.
Dave, you're muted. I know. There we have some guests joining us. I think this daylight savings has got everyone's, goofed up on schedule. What do you think?
All right, how's that? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
We
I'm not
see
too-
you, we hear you. It's good.
You found that little sign down there?
I had to make a full screen on my computer because I couldn't see it.
Uh,
All right, we're waiting for, oh, there, you're under town hall, Paul.
Hey, didn't you know? It's because I checked in on the website.
Okay. Good. So we have Dave, Paul, Nancy. I'm looking for a quorum.
When Austin is on via phone.
Oh, great. Are you the 434 code?
That's correct.
Oh,
I'll
great.
switch to my computer when I get home.
Okay. Thanks, Austin. Well, with that, we have a quorum. So, hi, Josh. So I'm Lynn Spencer, Chairman of the Community, Chairman of Nahant's Community Preservation Committee, and I'm calling this meeting to order. Attending tonight as members of the committee are Paul Spurn, clerk,
Hello.
and at-large member, Dave Wilson, representing community housing, Nancy Contalmo as open space representative, and Austin Antrim as an at-large member. I serve on the committee as a representative of the Nahant Historical Commission. And we have various guests, which is wonderful, including Julie Tarmy, who is regularly with us in her capacity as a member of FinCom, and Selectman Josh Antrim, with Tony Barletta listening in by phone. So this meeting is being held by Zoom. We encourage public involvement. I will actually, to the best of my ability, monitor questions and comments in the chat box at the bottom of the screen. So let us address the minutes. Paul, you distributed 2 sets of minutes.
Correct. First, February 21st. And let me share my screen so that anyone who has corrections to make or suggestions to make, you can see them in real time.
Actually, Paul, I did have a couple of copy edits.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, but now I'm going to have to find them,
Oh, well, there you go.
but I will. Well, on this one, it was pretty darn simple, Paul, under the Johnson School Heritage Trail,
Uh-huh.
last sentence.
Yep,
I think you meant it might be advisable.
yep.
And that was it on that. That was the extent of my commentary. Other members?
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
hi, Ellen. Ellen Goldberg has now joined us, and she is an at-large member. Any other comments on these minutes? Okay, with that tiny copy edit, could I get a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved, Nancy.
Okay, a second?
Dave Wilson, second.
Thank you. So we'll do a roll call vote on this. Paul Spurn, all those in favor? Paul Spurn?
Aye.
Aye.
Dave Wilson?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Austin?
Aye.
Ellen?
Aye.
Lynn? Aye. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then the next is, where is it? Here it is, 28. Okay, and I had a question myself. I I presume that the minutes are being shared. You can see this screen.
Mhm.
Yes,
Okay. Uh, about Jimmy's presentation about the doors at the life-saving station, did the way it was transcribed, it said in the last sentence of that paragraph, due to high cost in labor and material, it may instead be around $50,000 or $60,000 to replace. Did he mean to say truly replace? Did he say replace? Or was it that they anticipated that the repair might be more costly?
So I actually do have a copy edit on this one. Because my understanding is that they are replicating the doors in kind. So
Oh, so they're not being repaired.
that's right. They're being.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. All right, let's read that through then. So it's um, replace, is that an acceptable word?
You could say restore because when when something is missing, you restore it.
Oh, okay. My layman's approach to that would be you've got something in hand and you return it to its former glory. That's not a new piece of equipment, but if that's a term of art that is acceptable to you, it's certainly fine with me.
It's one of those terms of art under the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Historic Preservation.
Okay, to restore, and then we'll do the same down here.
Now there, I think it would help to help the record sort of understand what restore means. I was
Oh, okay.
suggesting that to replace them with exact replicas of the original doors as
All
the
right, well, we'll say
restoration.
replicate. How's that?
Yeah. But
I think she means down the bottom.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
well,
actually give you,
it appears in two places.
okay, fine. We'll do that. He is the clerk, Nancy, so we have to.
Okay,
pay
okay.
attention.
Okay, is there another one somewhere? I think maybe, did I slip some brackets in here somewhere else? I might have.
I have another one under,
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
under the Bailey's Hill.
Right where
Up
you
here?
are, there's, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
We'll get to that if Bailey's Hill's first.
Okay, Bailey's Hill, what's the change?
Okay, so I wanted to, the last sentence under Bailey's Hill Restoration, EG, I would like a goal to remove invasive species in the understory. And Nancy, I defer to your memory on this, but I think that that was.
Yeah,
the real
that sounds right.
clarification.
Oops. Okay,
And then next under the second paragraph under Tony Barletta's commentary, where you have in brackets who spoke and who is.
yeah,
There's a tiny, the second line is grant is spelled wrong.
Yeah,
This grant is for Bailey's Hill proper behind the gazebo.
thank you. Okay,
I thought that was like great.
all right, so I didn't understand, this came in and it was with, it seemed to be without retribution and I didn't know who was being referred to either, so can somebody clarify that for me?
I would just simply say the committee requests a guidance statement.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't Barletta speaking.
No,
Okay,
he's speaking, and then we, in response to that, requested a guidance statement.
okay. A guidance statement and what is being done from the open space.
About
and
what
rec-
is, about what is being proposed.
Okay, from
To-
the open space and rec committee.
Right.
Okay. All right. Anything else? What is this? 9 Howe Road, 9N LNR? What's that?
Little Nahant Road is the correct thing to say, not the how, forget the Howe Road. It should be 9 Little Nahant Road. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
It's kind of on both streets.
Well, all right. Is there a name on the proposal? That
Yes.
is- Is it, excuse me, is it called 9 Howe Road on the
No,
proposal?
it's 9 Little Nahant Road.
9 Little Nahant Road. Let's call it that. It's 9 Little Nahant Road.
Okay, so be it.
You can take away that last parentheses too.
Yeah, it's on my way.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, and let me see if I had anything else. I think that this is an important transcription of what was discussed in that meeting. And I think that you and Kristen did a good job on that. Thank you, Paul.
Primarily Kristen.
Well, okay.
Lynn,
I didn't have anything else. So do any other committee members have any
Lynn,
comments?
do you see here where you say that I'm reading questions from the chat? Didn't B. Rogers speak herself? Or did you read this?
I believe she spoke.
I thought so too.
But-
Okay,
Maybe I'm saying I'm opening questions. Maybe you can say I'm opening questions from the chat.
okay.
We had some of them I read and some of them, well, B spoke on her issue.
Yeah,
on
okay.
her point.
All right. Okay.
Other comments from other members of the committee on the minutes? Okay,
Lynn, this is Austin.
Yep,
Sorry, I'm going to abstain from voting on this. I don't believe I was present at that meeting.
no, you weren't. Okay, can I have a motion to accept these minutes as edited?
So moved, Nancy.
A second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favor of accepting these minutes as edited? Paul,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Helen? Aye. Austin abstains because he was not in attendance at that meeting, and I vote yay. Right, so thank you. And I want to acknowledge with appreciation the efforts of Kristen Taylor with Paul to prepare these minutes. It's really very much appreciated. We will need our minutes from the March 7th meeting, but I
Right.
suppose we'll see those next time.
Yep.
I'd like to start out by asking for the last review by a designated committee member of our grant applications. At the last meeting, Austin very kindly volunteered to represent, to look into the Nahant Historical Society's application for document conservation. So Austin, are you able to speak on behalf of that application at this time?
I will do my best. I can't look at my notes right now, but I can certainly discuss what I talked to Julie Tarmy about.
Lynn,
so-
Austin's in transit, I think.
Yeah, so when would it be convenient for you, Austin?
I'll start it now, and then I should be home in about 10 or 15 minutes, and I may be able to finish prior to that. So the gist of this application is there are 9 record books from the Johnson School. The years are, I don't have my notes, but I believe it's late 50s through mid 60s or somewhere in that range. They had discovered that those transcripts have mold blooms in them. So they took those documents, put them in a freezer for a year to stop the growth and segregate them from all of the other records so that the mold did not spread. They then received an estimate from a conservator on what it would take to take each document apart, get rid of the mold completely, clean the documents, digitize them, and put them back together. So they received a quote for that work in 2020. Julie Tarmy was able to contact them. They will honor the price that they gave in 2020. And they also agreed to break this application up so that rather than the full amount that was initially applied for seeking funding this year, they will do, I believe it's 4 of the books this year, and then the other 5 next year. So the ask this year would be $18,464. So that would be the taking 4 of these transcripts apart, cleaning them, digitizing them, putting them back together with a new binding, and returning them. And then next year, the funding amount would be $23,077 for the remaining 5 documents. And I asked some questions about what these documents are and how they are used. And basically what they are attendance records for those years through the Johnson School. And Julie had a lot of anecdotes about how these are used. One example was a daughter who she did not know her father. Her mother had gotten rid of all record of him and photographs. She knew he attended Johnson Elementary School in a particular time frame. So Julie was able to locate him, his attendance records, where he went to high school, and the daughter was able to get a copy of his high school yearbook and with photographs. And so there's been several applications like that where these records have been used as research tools by the Nahant Historical Society, up to and including, researching sort of past outbreaks of viruses and other medical things and seeing how that affected attendance at Johnson School. It was very interesting. But, so that is the revised application. Rather than the full amount, it'll be broken up into 2 years. And I did ask, whether the Historical Society would be able to provide a match possibly, but at this time they are not able to. They're having, like a lot of organizations, some difficulty because of the closures from COVID-19 and increased expenses.
Well, thank you, Austin. So let's open the floor to discussion by the committee as on what they've heard and what their concerns might be with this application.
So this is Nancy, and I have, there's something in the chat by Julie saying that there would be a slight increase in the price because we're breaking it out.
Mhm.
So by breaking it apart, it slightly increases it. So we'll have to figure out exactly what that is. And I also have a question, which is, one thing we have to look at with all of these grants is like, is there anything immediate that has to be done? And is it okay? So my question is it okay to do this for like the mold deal and everything like that? Is anything going to deteriorate by breaking it into 2?
My understanding is that the mold outbreak has been stopped by the 1 year that the document's spent in a freezer.
Okay.
This is Dave. I have same kind of a question is, if we wait for another 2 years, the cost is going up, and what, the mold could come back. My question is, how much of, what would we save, if any, if we did the whole project now? I mean, Austin said there's a different cost, a slight different cost. Do they know that cost right now, Austin? Or?
Dave, that's the first I've heard of an increased cost of breaking it up, so I don't know what that difference is.
So I'd like to do something somewhat unusual tonight because we have a member of the Nahant Historical Society. In fact, the executive director is with us. She's now going to take her FinCom hat off and put her Historical Society hat on to address the points that have been raised. Julie.
Yes, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I received an email this morning. I got an email last Friday while Austin was in the office from the Northeast Document Conservation Center saying that there was no problem breaking it out. This morning, I received an email stating that there will be a slight increase to the cost. I emailed back, but I have not gotten the new numbers. I checked just before you started the number. She said it would be a slight increase because where we're breaking it out over 2 years, or possibly breaking it out over 2 years, the setup, if you were doing it all at once, you're only setting up once, you have the same people continuing right along. I don't believe there's a chance. I don't want to speak out of turn because I'm not a conservator, but with the mold coming back, I've been assured that the mold is now dormant, but the longer we keep it on the paper, the more work will have to go into removing those stains, and I don't want to take the chance that we'll obliterate some of the information. Does that answer your question?
That seems like, oh dear.
I mean, I can't allow other people to use these books because the dust will go into the air. I don't want to take the chance that something might start up again on other records.
Right.
These books right now are being kept separated from the rest of the log books in acid-free containers. But I do believe it's important that we get these done, and we're willing to break it out into 2 years if that makes it a better option.
I appreciate the nuance that I think I'm hearing from you on this, Julie. I think the question would be, and Dave has raised it and others as well. Once mold starts, it goes.
Right.
So has this affected other parts of your collection, of the document collection?
Not that I'm aware of. These 9 volumes appear to be made from a different type of material than the volumes directly ahead of it and the volumes directly after it. Because when I went to use, this is how I found it. I was doing some research. I pulled one out. I found the mold. I immediately closed the book. And then I started going on either side of that one book to see where it stopped. And it's in one decade between 1959 and 1969, where it could just be the paper that was used, or perhaps as they were being stored, something developed in these volumes. But so far, they have not expanded to the school, any other school records that I have access.
Hey, Julie.
Yes, Dave.
Yeah, that must be the years that we were there.
Okay.
Okay, let's get that into the minutes, guys.
We got some moldy people around here.
Julie,
Yes, Dave.
My own concern is, if we're gonna break this up, there's gonna be a little bit more cost. And that might be more than what you are asking for right now. Is that true?
Yes,
The total?
it will increase. As I said, I didn't have the numbers as of this afternoon, well, this evening before we went on.
Yeah, I understand that, but if you're gonna do 4 this year and 5 next year, it might be more, it costs more to do it in a 2-year than it would on the 1 year. That's what I'm asking,
But NEDCC has assured me they will not increase the price for this project. It's considered one project. They will price it out right now. Well, they're honoring the price. It's just that because we're breaking it out, there's going to be a slight increase,
I understand that, yeah.
but the cost of goods will not, or the cost of labor will not increase.
All right. Other questions from the committee to Austin or Julie?
Don't we need a resubmission of the new budget?
As soon as I was hoping to get that done today, but I didn't get any new numbers.
Right, well, you need to split it into 2 also. I don't think that's been formally.
Yes, it's
has it?
approximately $18,000 in the first year and $21,000, 21,000.
Okay, so as far as you're concerned, Julie,
Yes.
this is still one submission. You're just anticipating spreading the budgetary requirement over 2 years.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I'm going to move on now to the challenge that I laid out to the committee last week, which was we need to begin to look at these grants individually with our recommendations, because I'll just remind everyone, we have, 2.5 weeks to get this to the point that we can take this to FinCom. So I'm going to suggest, Paul, that you put the spreadsheet on the screen.
Yep. That would be, okay, Lynn, did you make your other changes today to the
Yep.
file dated 3/7 and then you changed it to 3/14? Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
Can you go to the top, please?
Sure.
Okay. So I think that I'd like to do is just run this right through the sort of order that these grants were received and recorded. And here we are with the Nahant Historical Society coming in with first, and they're the last one that we've heard from. So what is being proposed is a 2-part application process. Year 1, a grant would be allocated of $18,464, which could, Paul, go under recommendations. Under recommendations.
Yeah. 18,464.
That's what I had. Anyone else? Did I misrecord that by any chance? Okay. So that would be
that would be year 1.
That would be year 1. Now, I do want to actually just pause a moment on this, because we have potentially two-part applications. This one, as well as the Johnson School Heritage Trail. In the past, when we have had multi-year applications, we've certainly, considered that in mind. And I'm really thinking about the town clerk's records, where that was spread over a 4-year period. We didn't vote the future applications in a given year. We heard it each year of the application, but we certainly were mindful that that succeeding applications would be coming in. So on that basis, I would say we would be asking the Historical Society to reapply next year for the 2nd year of their funding cycle. The same thing would be true of the Heritage Trail.
Right.
Any thoughts on that?
No, I think that's appropriate, really, because I don't think that it is good policy for us to commit future budget cycles at a time when we can't anticipate what's coming down the pike. That's why we're very cautious about the larger ones where we look to bonding, because essentially what we're doing is hamstringing ourselves um, for future budgetary years. So I think that's perfectly appropriate, Lynn.
I would agree. Nancy?
Others? Anyone else? Okay.
Has someone else done the math for the year 2 component? So I can slide that in.
Well, I don't want to end the recommendations, Paul. That's the point. I think you could
Oh,
put
I'm
it
sorry.
in
So this is, okay, so recommendation is
for this
what
year.
we would propose if
Right.
we choose to do so.
Yep.
Okay,
So
got it.
I certainly, you could put it, I've got a last column on this. It is proposed action. You know, maybe we should change the heading to say notes. And
Notes, yeah.
that
that's
could
a good
acknowledge
idea.
that we'll certainly consider a year 2 application.
Right, and if you want to have that column H be a sum at the end to check your math as you go, don't put any other text in it and just put all your text in the notes.
Yeah. Ellen's helped me.
Oh, well,
learn
so
that the hard way.
recommendations would be a quantitative one.
Recommendations would be simply, you put a number in that column and you put
Got it.
anything, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we good on that? I'm going to push us right along. Nahant Preservation Trust application for the boat room doors. They are estimating this to be a $80,000 project. I believe they have gotten a cost estimate from Gerardo Doherty, who is the contractor who has worked on that building in the past. I believe that they're in the process of trying to get one from the company that Dave Wilson suggested, which was Cronenberger, who had worked on the Ellingwood Chapel doors, but I think that is still somewhere in process. I'd like to hear the committee members' thoughts on this. I'm sorry that Jimmy Dolan isn't able to join us today because he was the person who had spoken with Emily Potts and had looked at the grant quite carefully. But love to hear from others on this committee about the replication of the boat room doors. Hi, Austin. Glad to see you in person.
So Lynn, I would appeal to your expertise on this. Are we really chasing a phantom here in terms of a second contractor who would do the kind of job that we expect Doherty would do, and save us a substantial amount of money, or is this?
Well, the
not
one thing I would
realistic?
say about Cronenberger is that they're based just outside of Hartford, Connecticut. So it would be a haul for them. But I think that I saw this as a test, you know, as a verification.
Well, on that, Lynn, when they come up with the doors, they had a problem with the locks. So I called them the next day and they were there in a couple of hours. I mean,
Yeah.
the workers did an excellent job of taking them down and repairing them. That's the only reason why I was saying, why can't we get a quote from them? I mean,
Yeah, no, I think it's a very good idea, Dave, and I've had very good work with them. So I appreciate your suggestion. I think, you know, what's happening is people are very busy now. They're,
Yeah.
you know, this is a number chasing kind of thing. So,
yeah, I understand that, but you know, it's just, you know, the workmanship was, you know, excellent.
excellent. Yeah.
So,
So have they given you any sort of a timetable for responding?
I'm not doing this, Paul. So if you're,
Well, I'm
if you,
sorry.
yeah, I think that Emily Potts is pursuing this, and um, quite honestly, at this point, remember, these aren't bid documents, these are estimates.
Mhm.
So, I think that what we've seen is with these various projects is we put in a good budget estimate. And then the project itself, as you'll hear as this meeting moves on, actually goes through a formal bid process.
Mhm.
so I didn't quite understand um, about what was going on until today, that you're actually gonna be taking down those doors and putting up new doors.
Yep.
And so I thought, I felt a kind of urgency about this, when it was reported, because I thought, oh man, if we don't like fix this, they're gonna like fall apart and it's gonna cost more and more and more money. So I guess I like to ask in each of these things, what happens if we don't grant it? Is something terrible gonna happen, like we think might happen with the arch of Ellingwood Chapel? I mean, um, is it okay to not do it this year, since we're building totally new ones anyway? So that's my question.
Who here has tried to open and close the boat room doors at the life-saving station?
I have,
Dave?
yeah.
Okay. You want to talk about what that's like?
Well, they are, sometimes they stick it because of the humidity and stuff, and they are hard to close. And, they're not square anymore and they're hard to lock. And, my feeling is someday you're not gonna be able to open them or even close them.
And
So this is,
I think that they are, one set of doors had to be replicated, 20 odd years ago. And ironically and sadly, they're the ones that are in the worst condition. The original doors from 1898 are there. They are out of plumb. They're racked, as David just suggested, and they're very hard to open and close. I think in some cases a come along has been used to do this. These doors are part of what makes this building attractive. They're historically important, but in fact, they are part of what happened, when this place is rented for functions or used by meetings in the warmer months, opening those doors is part of the, if you will, the glory of the place. And then being able to close them. So
Okay, so there is urgency about doing this.
I believe that there is. I mean, I know last year, some repairs were made to try to sort of bridge this. We have two people who could speak more about this. One is Emily Potts, who's here from the Nahant Preservation Trust. And I've just looked at an email or a comment from Suzanne Macarelli, who says, as a renter of the Nahant life-saving station, I rented it for a family party last summer. Very hard to open and close. I was worried we would break them, so I told the cousins to leave them closed. So that will give you some of the impact of this. Emily, I know that we haven't asked you formally, but here you are. Would you
Here I am.
make some comments about this?
I can tell you that one of my greatest fears is that after we get them open, we won't be able to close them at some point. And those doors are not only part of the beauty and part of the historical part of it, but they are a big protection for the building itself. If those doors aren't functioning right, or if one of those panels that is so worn blows in one day, during a nor'easter, I can just sort of see the whole building sailing off toward Revere. I mean, it's there. I would love to take anybody who wants to go look at the doors on a tour down there and just let you see up close and personal the deterioration in them, which has, to my eye, increased rapidly over the last year or two or three. They were not good before. The one door that we need the DPW to bring in the big bucket to get closed in the fall is, that has always been there and we've lived with it and we've done all right with it. But lately the doors are not, they just feel that they're falling apart. That's not a very scientific description of them, but if you saw them, you would see. So anytime one of you wants to come down and see it, I'm happy to take you down and show them.
So I have another question. This is Nancy. How do we make the replacement of these doors last for a longer period of time? What is it about the doors when they were restored that made them deteriorate so much? And how can we make sure that doesn't happen with our new doors?
That's a great question.
One of the things that came up when when O'Doherty was looking at the doors was what was the wood that was used. And that's why he has sort of specified it should be mahogany. Is it the difference between new wood and old wood? I don't know.
Nancy, I could speak for a moment about the replication of the doors because I was involved with that. I think that was 2002. And, that was at that point that the town was administering this grant or the procurement. And so that was a public bid project. I think that they used pine for the doors. And I think that is part of the problem. So it's not that the building hasn't been maintained because there's been numerous paint jobs and efforts to sort of keep the weather out. But I think the wood species is going to be important. And while it's tough to think about mahogany because it is part of, both import and harvesting from the ancient forests, but that is one of the most durable woods. Austin can also comment on this. I'm sure, we could consider something like teak, very expensive, very heavy, or ipe, same kind of thing.
I, in a former life, did replicate some historic doors for a building in Massachusetts, and mahogany was used to replicate it. It is far more weather resistant. Any pine you get these days is going to rot quickly. So I'm very happy to hear that they're choosing mahogany.
Yeah. Other comments from the committee or questions?
Hey, Lynn, it's Suzanne Mackerly. I have my hand raised.
I see you. How are you?
Good. So I just wanted to add one thing. I didn't initially come to the meeting about this, but having rented the life-saving station last year for my aunt's birthday party and the whole family came, it was awesome. It was wonderful. But the doors, it was hot. Not hot enough to use the AC. We wanted to look at the ocean. We wanted to look at Short Beach, so we wanted the doors open. But I wouldn't let my cousins open them because it was clear that if they forced them, they were going to break them. And I was like, no, like, don't force those doors. You can't break them. It's our life-saving station. And I was real protective of it because I actually care about the building. But I just wanted to bring up with, regard to like putting this off another year, I think you should do it this year because, or as soon as it can be done, because I think that's probably going to get rented out for a lot of events this summer now that COVID's almost over. And I'm not sure that other people will care as much about it as me and my family did. And they might force them and break them more to the point where they won't actually open and close. So I just wanted to relay that as someone who had an event there.
Thanks, Suzanne. I think that's good testimony. And I think that the fact that people will want to be at the beach in that building, and I know that actually those rentals are part of what supports the overall building. We saw a paint job done on that building last year, thinking about the wall and wanting to have things looking as good as possible. And I think the trust has stretched to make that happen. So now they're asking for help on this very substantial repair.
Lynn, what prerogative do we have in terms of expediting funding? Aren't we bound to a July 1st early date for releasing any funds?
Well, it depends on what pot we pull from, Paul. We'd want to have the town meeting would need to approve this. But if we were to pull the money from, for instance, the existing general reserve, we have, how much do we have there? We have about $260,000 there.
Right.
So that could get this, after we meet, for the town meeting in mid-May, then, a contract, the bidding could take place and a contract could be let and get this in process.
Yeah, I'm glad that you cited that, because I thought that would be the right way to expedite this. But even so, we can't free up funds until town meeting. And then
Right.
how long is it going to take to get these doors installed?
Going to take some time. I won't say
Yeah.
otherwise. I mean,
Yeah,
Suzanne is right to say that.
I think
there's
it's optimistic to think that that they're going to be in service for this summer reception season.
But we should get them going. If we're making this commitment, they should be done
Yeah.
as soon as possible for the
Yeah.
other reasons that Emily cited, which is keeping the weather out when we get, the autumn storms. So I'm looking for a recommendation from the committee for the amount that we would be willing to consider if we're considering this as a grant award.
Why, there's no other option but to spend what's being asked to fix them, isn't that correct?
Well, that would be the best thing, I think. In the past, we have said, okay, you've got some money coming into this. Can you do more? So, but I need to get a number down. So just somebody, is it $64,000 or is it $40,000?
This is Ellen. I would say let's put $64,000 down right now.
Good.
And let's revisit it at the end when we're looking at the total if we need to, but
Yep.
this sounds kind of critical to me.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the next one, which is the Nahant Village Church, which is making a request for $40,000 for handicapped access improvements to both entrances of that building. Paul, you were the person who who examined this quite closely. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think this is an archetype really for the kind of project that we should be doing when we're talking about historic preservation, because we are utilizing historic preservation funds to maintain the optimal utilization of the structure. So it isn't just making it pretty and satisfying the historic aesthetes among us. It is taking a building which is a working structure and putting it to best use. by making it fully handicap accessible. And then they're complying perfectly, as far as I can see, with the historic rubric. I think, however, that I would like to see a figure in this second column for match from the church. I know they have aspirations to do much bigger projects on the inside. I don't know if they plan to come back to the CPC for that, but
Paul, sorry to interrupt. I thought they had a $10,000 match for this
Yeah,
project.
they do. I think that this might, thank you, Austin, because I just looked at it too. I
Yeah.
think I made a mistake on this schedule.
impossible.
It's true. So let's
Okay.
put in the $10,000 because in fact, this should be a $10,000 match for a total project cost of 50,000.
Thank you, Austin.
Thank you,
I should
Austin.
I should keep better to my own knitting.
I should double check my schedules. That's why.
That's all right. Okay, so I think we're in range.
Okay. So do we have a recommendation here?
I think it should come from somebody else.
I would recommend we fund or recommend a funding of $40,000.
Okay, now moving on to the Johnson School application for the Heritage Trail enhancement. And this is a classic one that, you know, they responded to commentary from the committee and have resubmitted their application. What's shown here doesn't reflect the two parts of what they applied for. So that was $12,000 as a planning grant for a total project cost of $40,000. But they had put down as a grant request $40,000. So that's why we recorded it that way.
Right.
It's a little bit the same situation as we had with the Historical Society. Well, it is the same situation.
So the match that that stated, I believe, was 1,500.
Yeah, that's what it seems to infer. It's the math is a little bit off, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we're asking for 12,000 for this year, but where do we put the matching stuff in that, in the two-part submission?
I would take it in this year, quite honestly.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So that in fact, it's $12,000 minus $1,500. So that'd be 10.5 is their actual request, or that 10.5 could be our recommendation.
10.5? Is
Yeah.
that what you said?
Mhm.
Okay. Lynn, let me ask you, you said you've walked this area.
Yeah, you have. Yep.
Yeah. What's your seat of the pants, or maybe more appropriately, sole of your shoes, feeling about the new route taken? And do you think it is feasible on the face?
Well, since I was the one that suggested it, yeah, I think it is. I think, and
Okay.
I actually appreciated that Kevin suggested that it was a pleasant route and it kind of, in some ways, was safer. At the same time, I have to be cautious about the impacts on the golf course and walking
Yeah.
by an edge of the golf course.
Right.
So that's why really it made sense to me, Paul, and I think you were an advocate of this.
Yeah.
To have a planning, to have somebody who's a professional actually work with the Johnson School and the Open Space Committee, because this was originated by Linda Pivacek at the Open Space Committee, to just make sure that the route, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Do you think that answer without details, but an affirmative, a clearly affirmative or a clearly negative answer could be had for less than $12,000. That a landscape architect walking there saying, "Oh, this will be no problem," and yeah, we have to go into some details, and that's why we're going to charge you $10,000 for real planning drawings.
Well, you know what? It could be that this budget for that will, it could be less and they won't use that money.
Right.
I don't know the answer.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
the landscape architect is not only going to help them with the roof, but they'll talk about the materials that are used,
Yeah.
about the signage,
Right.
About removal of invasives, because we've got lots of that in this
Yes.
area. So I think even the steps that go up to the steps. I don't know any of you who have been on it recently, but there's a series of kind of wood timber steps that lead up from the area behind the Johnson School into the area that gives way to Bailey's Hill. The railing there is falling apart. The steps are in poor shape. So there are improvements that need to be made to what is already existing.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. There's multi-parts to this. But also to me, I just keep thinking about the safety issue. I just really want to stress that and make sure we take that into agreement of the safety of the students and elderly people and other people who walk this area.
Yep, very good point, Nancy. So can I get a recommendation?
So I would recommend that we approve the first portion of this, which would total 12, but would take into account 1,500 of their contribution.
Okay, thank you, Nancy.
Is that the
Next.
sense of the committee?
Yeah,
Then you happy with that?
I'm happy with it.
Okay.
And again, as Ellen suggested, we're laying these out. We'll be returning to these.
Okie dokie.
I am going to actually ask the committee to skip the next one, returning to it as we come to the end of this, because this will be a substantial and time-consuming discussion. And I'm referring to the town of Nahant's application for the purchase of 9 Little Nahant Road.
Mm-hmm.
Is the committee, is that acceptable to the committee?
Yeah, I think it's good for our blood pressure.
Yep, we're on
Okay.
a roll here. Let's keep moving.
Yeah, let's keep moving. So the next one on this chart is the application by the town of Nahant for the housing production plan. It falls under the community preservation category of community housing. It's an application that actually is looking really at assessment and recommendations for community housing, specifically for affordable housing, which we are short of substantially, as well as other housing issues. The application was for $75,000. I have had conversation with Tony, who has suggested that it could be somewhat less than this, but I don't know if he is on the phone right now and could comment. Tony?
I'm here.
Good. Do you want to comment about this application and whether $75,000 is necessary or it could be considered with a somewhat lesser amount?
Sure. So the $75,000 is estimated costs provided to us from MAPC to hire a consultant to help us build a complete housing production plan. It could go, they basically, if we wanted to, I think we could reduce the amount, but we'd want to change the language of the application. So there are many different elements of a housing production plan, different assessments that you start out with, and then different pieces that, reviewing your zoning, looking at accessory dwellings, aging in place, policies, doing an assessment of your where you currently stand with the Chapter 40B requirements. So there's a number of different elements that we could start with that might end up being enough to include in a housing production plan, but might not, but could fall just short of that. But that's okay. So we could, if we brought this down, I think, as low as 55 or 60 grand, we might just want to be a little bit more broad with the language of the article that would be featured at town meeting, to talk more about, costs associated with housing production plans, or instead of it being for a housing production plan specifically, it might be for the initial steps or elements of a housing production plan.
I appreciate what you're saying, but I will echo what I have heard from other committee members in this discussion. Is reducing the cost of this going to reduce the effectiveness of the planning effort?
I wouldn't say it's going to reduce the effectiveness. It may not get us to a complete housing production plan that could be submitted to the state for approval. It might only get us 3/4 of the way, but that's okay, because as you go through that process, you might kind of need more time, or take on different challenges, think of alternative ways that could help you eventually meet your requirements. So, it's
Okay,
yeah, I'm not sure if I answered your question.
yeah, so
but-
was the estimate of $75,000, how was that generated? Was that generated based on the population, the number of housing units? How did that come about?
A lot of it is, how intense your public process is going to be.
Okay.
And, what type of, associated with that is cost of public meetings, public engagement, notice to residents, different types of educational materials. It's really, it ranges, based on how intense that process gets.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Committee members, other comments or questions?
So this is Nancy. I think that in my reading, it's pretty important that the town does this, that that it gives us some protection of people who might come and try, like, to use the 40B thing against the town or for their own purposes. Is that correct? Like, our town should
Yeah.
have this, it's important that we have this plan.
So the Chapter 40B requires that 10% of your housing stock is affordable.
Right.
There's also another, it's called GLAM, GLAM, which I think stands for General Land Area. I can get you the actual, what that acronym is for, but there are two different, I guess, thresholds that a town can meet that would provide the town safe harbor against a unfriendly 40B development. Without meeting those thresholds, a developer could come in and basically surpass our local zoning. A housing production plan, which needs to be approved by DHCD, and they're very much looking for plans that seek to meet those thresholds, will provide a town safe harbor, temporary safe harbor against unfriendly developments if a town is meeting goals that are laid out in that housing production plan. So the first step is to have an approved housing production plan, and then meet certain elements or certain goals from that plan. Meeting certain goals from that plan would provide the town like 1 year or 2 years of safe harbor. So the first step for the town really is to hire a consultant to come in and assess the town's position with those requirements, whether that be under the percentage, which we pretty much already know that we're underneath the 10%. I think we would need something like 136 units of affordable housing, and right now we only have 48. Or the GLAM, which I think is 3% of your housing, 3% of your property, of your housing land has to be for affordable, which we don't know how close we are with that. So the first step would be to figure out where we are. So what would be our goals? That would help us figure out what the goals are to achieve that requirement. And then there's other elements of how you want to achieve it based on the needs of your town. So like I mentioned, aging in place is a type of assessment or study that really focuses on senior living and ways for seniors to stay in their community while being able to downsize their housing choices. So that's one option. We also have, we've identified, it's very hard for young families to move into Nahant too, because of the lack of affordable property. So addressing that issue. And there's a new zoning. There's a new state law that allows for accessory dwelling units to be included in your local zoning. That basically you can write it in a way that it would incentivize affordable living space. So there's a number of different things for us to. We might not need all three. We might need small pieces of each one of those. Maybe there's other stuff for us to consider. That's what the consultant would really help us with is first, where are we with the requirements? Like how short are we on those requirements? 2, what are the needs of the town? 3, how could we, propose changes in town that would help us get there?
Okay. Thank you, Tony. That's helpful. Other questions from the committee? Can I hear a recommendation for funding amount?
I'm puzzled as to why this has gone on for so long undone.
I don't want to put Dave Wilson on the spot because he is just new after, on and off service with the Housing Authority. But I would just make this observation, Paul. this is not unlike, why has it taken 10 years for the Open Space Committee to be reactivated and for them to do their work? This is, they've taken this on, Linda Pivacek was a wonderful leader. The town stopped appointing that committee years ago. Now they're activated, they're working very hard. These are citizen efforts. We have known that the 40B potential is very real. And that's why the whole object about the military housing, which I served
Yeah.
on in 2 different stints, really
Right.
tried to address how we could improve things over there. That has not succeeded at town meeting, or maybe it has, I don't know. But this, I think, is really important. There are several pieces of significant land that may be coming up. And, to have an unfriendly 40B in our midst, I think would be not, would be undesirable, to put it mildly.
Yeah, I maybe the thrust of my question uh, implied what I really didn't mean to imply. And really what I was wondering is our budgetary role here is one of complementing town projects, town responsibilities that otherwise might not get done. And yet this seems like a critical town function that should have been done years ago.
So let me just cut back in and say the same thing was true about open space.
Yeah.
And, we fought to get an article passed against the will of the FinCom 2-3 years ago to help the Open Space Committee have the financial resources to do their work. Same thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean,
Sorry for the,
I agree with
derailing the
Lynn,
discussion.
buffered by or supported by what Tony said. This is like a really important thing. We need to do this. So, I mean, we have to do this. I just don't understand exactly how much money we need to put, but I guess maybe my recommendation right now would be to say that amount of 75 and then maybe talk about it at the end.
Okay. I do want to share a comment from one of the listeners who comments that the Board of Selectmen for the town of Swampscott have recently sort of been able to, I won't say stop, but put thresholds in the 40B process, a 40B process that is underway over there. So it's going to be a question, if we can actually consider investing the planning money now to put ourselves in a good position to fight for future 40Bs, I think it'd be worthwhile.
Can I comment on that, Lynn?
Yes, please.
That story recently in the item about the unfriendly 40B occurring in Swampscott, the headline is very misleading. Basically, what they've gone to the state, and keep in mind that when you're opposing a 40B property development, those developers are going to the state to get the approval to bypass our local zoning, and they reach out to your community to find out, the town's feeling on it. It's very difficult to have the state rule in opposition on a 40B because they are extremely favorable towards developments that produce affordable housing, especially in towns that don't meet their thresholds. In Swampscott, there are elements of a project that you can raises concerns that can slow a process down and cause a developer to go essentially back to the drawing board. In Swampscott, they talked a lot about the environmental concerns related to blasting, because this project is being proposed in an area of town with a lot of ledge. The state ruled in favor of the town's concerns, requiring the developer to go back to the drawing board. But in no way was that an easy task, or is it the end of that situation? So I've seen the article and I've seen some of the social media comments about it. It's not that simple to push back on an unfriendly development. This housing production plan as well or the reason we submitted this isn't just because we want to protect ourselves from unfriendly 40Bs. We have, the Board of Selectmen have, publicly stated that there are serious housing concerns that the town has, such as senior affordable housing and young families not having the ability to buy property in town. So it's not just to protect from 40B. However, having a housing production plan definitely helps protect yourself from that, but it's also thinking forward about the issues that are in town.
Thank you, Tony. I think that's well said. I do remember that when the military housing was acquired, the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator conducted a public review process, and there was very strong interest in over 55 housing opportunities and, again, young families. So thanks for the reinforcement on that. I'm looking for a recommendation from the committee as to the amount that we would actually recommend to hold in this column.
I thought I said 75, but maybe someone else has a different
Great, thank you.
idea.
No,
Paul,
70.
can you record that, please?
75, right?
75. All right, I'm going to move on because I'm going to close this meeting at 8:30, but I'd like to get more work done here. So the next one that we're looking at is the application by the town of Nahant for work in the main assembly hall. It's labeled here as town hall curtained and main window curtains, but in fact, it's really acoustical acoustical and lighting improvements should be the way that that's described. I believe, we've had a revised application from the town, and I think this category needs to reflect that. They have requested $100,000. They have had 2 consulting firms involved in advising on the acoustical mitigation and improvements, as well as lighting, which is basically replacing the World War II era fixtures that are now in town hall. They don't provide adequate light. And the town hall has recently, along with other public buildings, had improvements for energy efficiency. And these lights should be consistent with that desire for energy efficiency for basically climate and fiscal prudence.
Lynn, I would recommend the full $100,000 here. Just to remind the committee, 15,000 of that is the curtains and window treatments to help with the acoustics. The balance is already a reduced amount suggested for the lighting budget.
And those of us who have been in meetings in town hall would do appreciate that the acoustics are very challenging in that space. Some of it has to do with, a better sound system, but a lot of it has to do with the configuration of that space and the very hard surfaces, plaster walls and ceilings, wood floors, and so on. The lighting is also, I think, an issue. So as part of the effort to make that building more user-friendly and useful, I think there's some value here. And the committee will remember that we've also approved in last year's town meeting, money for handicapped access and related improvements. I think this is really part of full accessibility of town hall. So is everyone on board with that? $100,000?
Yes.
Okay. Next, this is more complicated. This has to do with, this is the application by the town of Nahant. It's labeled here as the Green Lawn Cemetery Walls and Entry Arch, but I think it more properly should say, and Town Hall. And Tony, since you are on the line here, would you actually give us an update on the whole situation with bidding, the current bidding project and its status? Because I think it included some of this work.
Yes. So Greenwood was the original contractor of the lowest bid. Their base bid was for 436. Well, okay. Did I step? I probably went ahead a little too quickly.
You probably did.
PPC
Let's start at the beginning.
Sorry.
Go back.
Quick recap. CPC awarded the town $500,000 at last year's town meeting through borrowing for this same exact, for these same exact items. And the Mass Historical Commission also granted $50,000 for the library portion. So this is envelope exterior work having to do with masonry, roofing, gutter work at the library, at the town hall, plus some woodworking on the cupola of the town hall, as well as the arch at Green Lawn Cemetery. So we put out an RFP, and the base bid, was for pretty much all the work at the library, and the lowest bidder at $436,000 came in at was Greenwood. We ended up the Board of Selectmen voted to award them the contract. We begun contract negotiations, and Greenwood actually withdrew before we signed a contract, which they were allowed to do, citing increased costs of materials, not being able to meet the timeline, a couple other items. So the second lowest bidder is Homer Contracting, and their base bid came in at $494. We've met with them. Our goal is to award, sign the contract, and issue a notice to proceed on Wednesday night's Board of Selectmen meeting. Their bid came in at $494. Then there was 4 alternatives, or additional items that could be added on to the contract. Alt 1 came in at $5,000, so $499, and then Alt 2 came in at $57,000.
Tony, could you just describe what those alternates are for?
So like I said, so the base bid was basically all the work at the library. Alternate 1 was I believe alternate 1 was for some gutter work on the town hall, and then alternate 2 was for replacing the stone around the window on the library as you walk up the ramp to the side door. The window to your left, the sandstone, is deteriorating. So alternate 2 is to replace the sandstone that borders those windows. If you add up the base bid, alternate 1 and alternate 2, it adds up to $556,000. So we are just $6,000 shy of being able to award alternate 2. So on Friday, I reached out to Ross Deckel at Mass Historical Commission and asked if they would consider increasing their grant award to the town. And he has responded today saying that they would do so. So it looks like we're going to be able to award the base bid, alternate 1 and alternate 2. So alternate 3 and alternate 4 are outside of the current funding, and Homer's bid price for those numbers currently are $192,000 for alternate 3 and $25,000 for alternate 4.
And
So
what are those for?
just so that would be the cupola and the chimney of the town hall.
So these are, that's all town hall.
Yeah, we prioritize the library in the setup of this RFP.
And so there's
So-
nothing was specified or bid for the Green Lawn Cemetery archway.
Correct. We did not include that in the bid.
Yeah, okay.
So 192 plus 25,000 ends up being $217,000. We estimate the arch at the Green Lawn Cemetery. I think we estimated it around $100,000.
Right.
So that would be $317,000. Can you remind me what the grant amount, what the application is for?
350.
$350. So
So how are you
Um,
paying for the architect's fees?
Richard Smith,
Yeah. Where's that coming from?
that is coming out of I'll have to double check, Lynn. I'm not positive.
Because I mean, you've made a nice tidy picture with the base bid plus the 2 alternates at 556. So you've got $500,000 from the CPA grant that was awarded last year. 50,000 from MPPF plus an extra $6,000 from MPPF. So that's nice. That's good.
Mhm.
But
And Homer said they would hold their price for alt 3 and 4.
okay.
So I don't think, luckily here we're not, we don't have to go back out to bid, which I think would have resulted in higher prices. We're confident in Homer's ability to get this work done, and they've said that they would hold their price. So I don't think that we need to change the grant amount. Let me double check where we are paying Richard Smith out of, and if we could reduce the application, but certainly we don't need to increase it or make any, we were thinking about if we had to rebid it, if we were gonna, kind of just do the cemetery and start over. But I think we're in a good spot to keep the application as is and maybe potentially reduce the amount.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. Committee members, thoughts, comments, questions?
So the substance of this project is still Green Lawn Cemetery entrance arch. I don't think there's any room there for cemetery walls. Is
No.
there?
No,
No,
And
No.
and then the town hall cupola, and what else at the town hall, Tony?
The chimney
Chimney.
and other roofing, masonry work, little small items around the town hall. So I think technically we could probably eliminate the library from the language of this application, because we're going to be able to, we should be able to cover all the library needs with the current funding.
Yeah, I didn't follow the figures all that carefully, but it seems to me like you had $556,000 to work with, and didn't you get a bid of 494? Isn't that what you were saying?
The
Isn't there a
base bid is
surplus?
the base bid's 494,
Yeah.
and then alternate one
Oh,
is
okay.
5,000, so that makes it 490. I'm sorry,
99,
499.
Yeah.
And the alternate two is 57,000, which makes it 556.
Okay. Right
so-
on the money. Got it.
so actually, if you look at the town hall application, you'll see a memorandum from Richard Smith, which lays all this out.
Oh, okay.
So it
All right.
shows the bids, it shows the alternates. It didn't label the alternates with what they are. So it's good to have this discussion from Tony
Okay.
to what they refer to, but the material is there. So committee, we have a challenge with this because, we have now for several years been steadily investing in the preservation of these municipal buildings, these important landmark buildings. Following the conditions assessment that was done, I think 5 years ago.
Mhm.
This would represent, given the magnitude of the grant applications here and, our own consideration, I think we may be in a position to consider this for bonding, because if we fund this in full, then we are actually, putting ourselves in a very awkward position.
Yeah.
So I always have this question because it's the same question that we've dealt with now for the last 2 years of library bond or library funding, and now town hall and green lawn. It's this, Tony. Is there anything else that your recommendation, that your architect, who is experienced with this, would want to recommend as a priority? Because this would be the third bond in 3 years. So I simply ask that. I don't think you'll be able to answer that tonight, but I'd like you to actually revisit that with Richard Smith and see if there's other things that we should actually be folding into this. The cost of bonding is pretty low right now. Not that it's
Not for long.
not for long, but it is low right now. Tony?
Okay, well, yeah. I'll have to talk to Richard. I mean, there was other general contractor type work that is needed at the town hall that we left out of the bid, that we're hoping to roll into the ADA bid, and when we eventually get there, and fund it out of town hall capital funds. I don't want to give the impression that, this is, once we do this, we're done. I think that, we're just talking about exterior on both library and town hall here. I know the library has other needs on the interior, and so does the town hall. Obviously the cemetery, Ellingwood Chapel, have a tremendous amount of needs. So it's hard to give you a complete answer. about what else would make sense to roll into this. I'll have to talk to Richard and get back to you on that.
Okay. So folks, what I'm going to suggest is that we actually put a note somewhere, not in this, but under the recommendations column, but maybe just next to it, Paul, where we say, $350,000 bond pending.
And what,
consideration.
Lynn,
Just
just,
put it in the notes column.
yeah,
Yeah,
Lynn, what would be the range of yearly expenditure for bonding this?
if we look at what we're carrying for the current bonds, it probably would start around $70,000. And that, of course, will depend on when the bond is actually taken. So for instance, the bond that we approved last year that is funding this $556,000 project has not been, I don't believe that's actually been taken as yet. But it will be if they're about to sign a contract.
Right. Well, there's a
That's what-
$400,000 bond that comes out at $60,000 a year.
Yeah, because that's year 2, Paul.
Yeah, I
So-
understand. So I'm just saying that if we put $60,000 in the recommendation column, that would be on the order of our yearly commitment starting next year, not this year, for this funding.
No, actually, if they're actually looking at it as part of an inclusion in this contract, it would probably hit this year. The construction would be taking place this year.
So we would have to draw on that. We'd have to get that bond started. Chop, chop.
Chop, chop.
Okay.
But I want to hold on that. I mean, you can put down that amount and then you can put over in the column as Ellen suggested, this could be a 10-year bond.
Okay.
But this one is pending. If they're about to award to Homer Construction, they can't add these 2 alternates until they're funded. But apparently Homer is willing to hold their numbers.
Yeah, I don't understand the information in the current notes. Is that legitimate? Can you read it? Total estimated cost $750,000. I mean, that's historical. Nobody's proposing to spend that money in addition. That was the initial.
Right. So why
funding.
don't you just rewrite that and say?
Yeah, I think let's just get rid of it.
Yeah, good idea.
So, and then we'll put in there potential for bonding.
Mm-hmm. And I think
Okay.
this would be a 10, I think you could say, no, this would be a 10-year bond.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to suggest that we're about halfway through these. I think we have started to establish the rhythm of how we review and recommend these. So I'd like to suggest that we look at closing this meeting for tonight and beginning next Monday on article, what is listed as number 9 here, which is the town of Nahant's application for playground equipment improvements. If that makes sense to this group, I'd like to have, I thank you for recording this, Paul. If we could actually get this distributed to the group so they have this as a worksheet for next week.
Sure. Yeah,
And
I
then-
can do that right now.
I'd like to suggest that we look for a motion to adjourn and to resume this next Monday.
I'll
I'll
make
make that motion.
Both you gentlemen,
Yeah.
right to the finish. So I think we'll say Austin made the motion and Dave seconded it.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So This is a motion to adjourn this meeting. I'll ask for a roll call on this, starting with Paul Spurn,
Aye.
Dave Wilson,
Aye.
Nancy Salmo,
Aye.
Austin,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
and the chair says aye. So we begin our work next week. I'm just checking this chat to see if there's anything else. Nope, it's all disabled. So we are adjourned and I will see you next week. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Have a
you,
good
Lynn.
night.
Thanks,
Good
everybody.
night.
Thank you.
Good night.